Welcome to Divine Justice. The dramatic war between Kyiv and Moscow is the scene of major clashes of many critical front lines of Ukraine. In the face of the brutal aggressive policies of the Russian forces, the Kyiv army receives support from all over the world. In recent times, Russia's greatest enemy from the past, the Chechens, has been at the forefront of the most violent clashes between Ukrainian and Russian forces in the Bakhmut region. Since the beginning of the war, the Chechen warriors, who took part in the Ukrainian positions and prevented the Russians from realizing the full-scale Ukraine invasion plan, played an important role in the defense of the Ukrainian lands with their superior war experience and feelings of revenge from the past. Sheikh Mansour Elite Chechen Battalion, which immediately joined the Ukrainian army at the beginning of the war, stated that they attacked the soldiers in the Russian army with great hatred. Chechen warriors fighting for Ukraine describe Russian troops as cattle for slaughter. The number of Chechen battalions that want to support the Ukrainian forces is increasing day by day. The elite Chechen Sheikh Mansour Battalion significantly contributed to the success of the Ukrainian army. Sheikh Mansour Battalion had been fighting in the ranks of Ukrainian forces for a long time. In September, another Chechen unit, the elite Jokhar Dudayev Battalion, joined the ranks of Ukraine. At the same time, fighting Chechens from all over the world joined the Ukrainian army to fight against the Russians in Ukraine during the 10-month war period. Meanwhile, there was another elite Chechen battalion that had not yet joined the Ukrainian army, Ajnadal-Kavkaz Chechen Battalion in Syria, which broke its silence against Russia's missile terror over Ukraine in the past days, also joined the Ukrainian army. The Chechen Ajnadal-Kavkaz Battalion had fought against Russian forces in Syria for a long time. The commander and members of the Chechen Ajnadal-Kavkaz operating in northern Syria have been transferred to Ukraine to fight against Russian forces on Ukrainian soil. Chechen fighters from Ajnadal-Kavkaz have recently arrived in Ukraine from Idlib. Additionally, more commanders in the Syrian city of Idlib are leaving Idlib to travel to Ukraine to escape repression led by Hayat Tahrir al-Sham and take revenge on Russia and the forces of Chechen President Ramazan Kadyrov, an ally of Vladimir Putin. Although the Ajnadal-Kavkaz Battalion did not intervene in the Syrian internal conflicts and did not interfere in the affairs of the Syrian local community, the main focus of the group was fighting Russian-protected Syrian regime forces in the mountains and forests of the Latakia countryside, based on its combat experience in rugged geographical areas. Since the commander and members of Ajnadal-Kavkaz do not speak Arabic, he does not carry out any advocacy activities within the Syrian society. However, the group's forces played a role in uncovering shared codes among Russian forces in Syria, given their knowledge of this language. These forces have experience in martial arts, dealing with Russian aircraft, digging trenches, and working to prevent Russian airstrikes. This Chechen battalion also includes Syrian members and commanders who left the group after pressure from Hayat Tahrir al-Sham. All of them have a great hatred for Russia and are on the side of justice. Many of its leaders have now started to travel to Ukraine, and many senior members of this group are about to leave Idlib to escape the pressure of Hayat Tahrir al-Sham and fight Russian forces in Ukraine. Abdul Hakim al-Shishani, the commander of Ajnadal-Kavkaz, stated that he left Idlib to go to Ukraine after coordination with military groups from the Chechen Sheikh Mansour Battalion fighting against the Russians, as well as the Ukrainian forces in Ukraine. In this context, a commander from the Ajnadal-Kavkaz group, known as Abu Abdul al-Shishani, said that the war between Russia and Ukraine created an opportunity for us to leave Idlib and Hayat Tahrir al-Sham to get rid of us, stating that there are many educated and experienced Chechens who came to Ukraine from Idlib. El-Shishani underlined that most of them are Russian and Chechen nationals. El-Shishani said that we set out to go to Ukraine to fight the Russians who killed and committed the most crimes against our people in the 1990s. Through the Russian agent Kadyrov, Russian forces continue to use violence against every Muslim who is hostile to Russia, who is killing the Syrian people we came to support. El-Shishani emphasized that they hoped for a conflict with the Russian forces in Syria, but unfortunately this did not happen. El-Shishani stated that Russia is fighting in Syria using planes, but the Russian army in Ukraine had to fight on the ground. For this reason, your soldiers in the Ajnadal-Kavkaz group may face the Russians. El-Shishani stated that they are friends with every enemy of Russia, and that the innocent people in Ukraine are oppressed. El-Shishani stated that besides Russia being a common enemy, Islam commands to support the oppressed. Chechens have been fighting for an independent country since the collapse of the Soviet Union. They were defeated by Russia after the victory in the First Chechen War, and Putin backed the puppet leader, Ramazan Kadyrov, with billions of dollars in support. Chechen forces under the command of Ramazan Kadyrov are fighting alongside Russia in this war. The war between Ukraine and Russia provide a new area for struggles between Chechen battalions. Commander Muslim Chebarlayovsky leads the Sheikh Mansour battalion, one of the most active combat units. Chebarlayovsky underlined that Russia must lose, and if Ukraine is not defended today, everyone will lose. The commander, who has probably fought Putin's forces longer than any other commander, has warned that politicians in the West are not doing enough to defeat the Russians. Chebarlayovsky stated that he thinks that more support from Western countries is necessary. According to Chebarlayovsky, he pointed out that they could not win the war quickly because the West provided piecemeal support. Chebarlayovsky underlined that if they had more than enough ammunition on the battlefield, they could have won the war faster. The base commander Mansour spent 20 years fighting the Russians. He spent 8 of those 20 years in prison, where he was tortured. Chebarlayovsky said that God gave everyone a brain to think. If he doesn't think he shouldn't walk on earth, he belongs under the ground. With these words, Chebarlayovsky stated that they had no mercy for the Russians, and he warned that Western leaders not to be fooled by Putin's incentives to negotiate to end this war. Chechen battalions helping the Ukrainian army hope to take the holy war that started in Ukraine back to their homeland. Kadyrov is unpopular, but well-funded, and is guarded by thousands of well-armed security forces. Chebarlayovsky stated that once the war was over, they would continue to fight against Russia, hoping to overthrow it. Chebarlayovsky, for now, realizes this is a very long road. We left our bunkers and drove quickly from Bakhmut to the ground of artillery fire. He stated that Russian forces destroyed the Ukrainian city block by block in a grinding war of attrition, where no one seemed close to winning. It can be said that the Chechen troops in Ukraine showed their lives and supported Ukraine as much as the Western countries. However, the most obvious difference between Chechen fighters and Western countries is that, while Western countries help Ukraine to prevent the war from spreading to their own countries, Chechens support Ukraine to spread the war to their homeland. Among the most shadowy and deadly allies Ukraine has amassed in its war with Russia are the Chechens. All Chechens at the front are marked men wanted by Russia. Chechen fighters in Ukraine think that what Russia did in Ukraine is the same as what it did in their homeland in the 1990s. Besides the great hostility between the Chechen warriors in Ukraine and the Russians, the Chechens accuse Ramazan Kadyrov of siding with those who shed the blood of their ancestors. Kadyrov owes his leadership in Chechnya to Russian President Vladimir Putin, and in order for the people of Chechnya to get rid of the Russian yoke, they must first get rid of Vladimir Putin and then Ramazan Kadyrov. Chechen troops fighting in Ukraine must comply with this order to liberate Chechnya. Thank you for watching us.